July 2019, and I've been talking about making a birthing video, or like my experience with my son's birth since he was born a year ago, 14 months ago. I'm a little behind. Mostly the reason he was born, and it was a lot different than I had expected it to be, and a lot of things happened, and it was a longer process and all this stuff, and I didn't necessarily remember everything that happened by the time that I was kind of ready to talk about it. But we just moved. I recently found a journal where I had written down everything that happened, which is nice because I kind of had forgotten. There was kind of a lot in there, but as far as like the details of like birth that mostly people want to hear about, I finally have that. So I thought we could talk about kind of everything as far as his pregnancy went and whatnot. He was due April 27th. Yeah, April 27th. He was born May 3rd, 5/3/18. And pregnancy was awesome. It was kind of by the book. I was nauseous in the beginning, not for very long. I think probably like 3 or 4 weeks was like actual vomiting nauseous. After that, I was just kind of nauseous. And TMI, I don't know. With him, I could like hold it until I got somewhere that I could get sick. This time, definitely not the case. I had to have like, you know, be by the bathroom at all times. With Onyx, I remember a couple times where like I was in the car driving friends around or something, and I was able to like hold it from one place to the next and then be like, okay, you guys need to like walk away and not listen for a second. But anyways, his pregnancy was pretty nice, pretty awesome. Second trimester came, it was beautiful. Like, you know, just, I don't know, is everything I kind of wanted, which is why I decided to get pregnant again. And had this been my first pregnancy, honestly, I don't know if I would have had more kids, but I'll probably still have more anyways because I'm silly like that. Anyways, so by the time it came time to have him, he was due the 27th. I had gone into the doctor's. He was due on a Thursday. I went in on Tuesday. Am I getting this right? Hang on a second. This is kind of why. This is the part where I have to like do mental math. Yeah, I had gone in on that Tuesday, so a couple days before my due date. And I think that I had preeclampsia then, or at least signs of it that kind of should have been watched, but I think my doctor really sucked. I did not like my doctor at all. He was not the kind of doctor that kind of really cared much about me. Just like, I don't know. He never really said, how are you doing? It was just kind of like, here's this, I'm gonna do this, here's this, okay, you're good, bye. I only went to that office because it was literally across the street from my house and it was incredibly convenient, but we definitely have a different doctor this time. Anyways, so went into the doctor's office. My blood pressure had been pretty consistent every single doctor's appointment until that one, and it had gone up like 10-20 points, and nobody said anything and seemed to care. And I told them that I had like different symptoms. I had been swelling the whole end of my pregnancy, but by that point it was getting a lot worse, like a lot worse. And I think he just kind of blew it off like normal end of pregnancy things. I was getting a lot of dizzy spells. He kind of blew that off. Headaches, those kinds of things, which are signs of preeclampsia. And just sent me home. And I kind of had a really, on top of being like 40 weeks pregnant and done, I had kind of a bad week. And then I went to the doctor's, let's see, he was due on a Tuesday. I went that Monday. Or he was due on a Thursday and I went that Monday. So I was like 40 weeks and 3 days or something like that. Math, I don't know. But he was, it was in a couple days over his due date. He was due Thursday, so then the next Monday I went to the doctor. And my blood pressure was like 300/200. And I was really swollen, and it wouldn't like go down. I don't know, where they like pushed you in and see if it comes back up white or something. Something was wrong with my swelling. And he immediately, I went to the hospital. I went home, and my husband got off work. We kind of grabbed our bags and went to the hospital. And they started to induce me because at that point in time, I got my notes here. At that point in time, I was 40 weeks and 5 days. And they sent me to the hospital. and I was 1 centimeter dilated. I had been 1 centimeter for like a month at that point, so that wasn't really anything special. And that night, what happened, went in a room. I kind of assumed that they would start to induce me and I would have a baby that night or the next day. Like I was like, okay, we're gonna do this and it's gonna be awesome and easy. That was not the case. Also, I was terrified of C-sections, like a lot of people are. I thought that was like the worst case scenario. I didn't want a C-section. I wanted to do everything I could to make sure this baby came out like not C-section. Now, I'm sure you guys know, I did end up having a C-section. The thought of vaginal birth scares the fuck out of me. I'm like, that comes out of where? And yet it goes back like ugh. To me now that's just crazy and out there. C-section was a lot easier. But anyways, so they started me on Pitocin that night. Pretty easy night. I remember just like I was on Pitocin and they had like the belly band across to check the baby's heartbeat the whole time, and I couldn't get comfortable at all, and the nurse like literally stayed with me the entire night because I would flip over like every 10 minutes and then the band would adjust and she would just constantly have to move the band. I felt so bad for her, but like she deserved an award just for she like gave everyone else her I think she had 2 other moms that night, and she gave them to the other nurses and sat by my side the entire night and continuously moved my band every time that I had to adjust because I didn't sleep very well that night, and I was just constant. I'm a mover anyways in my sleep, but yeah, that's what happened. She was really nice. So then I woke up the next day after being on Pitocin all night and that evening and all night, because we went in at like 1 or like 3, something like that in the afternoon. So all day and all night, I had gotten up to a 3, and then they decided to stop the Pitocin. Sorry. Okay, so that night too, or early that next morning, they put a balloon in. That was the most painful thing I've ever experienced in my life. The balloon was by far worse than like contractions all the way. That sucked. I remember it going in, and then I'm like, okay, wow, like this is what real birth feels like. Like this is what contractions are. And then the next morning they popped it and took it out, and I'm like, oh, all that pressure went away. Like that's probably why, yeah, now that I think about it, I think I wrote it down wrong, but they put it in that night and I slept with it in, and that sucked. I mean, like it helped. It got me up to 3 centimeters, which isn't very much, but that hurt. Like that was worse than getting an epidural or anything like that. For me, a lot of people's stories are different, and they're just like, yeah, I didn't feel it at all, but that was, to me, the worst part was getting the balloon. Anyway, so they did the balloon in the Pitocin all night, woke up the next morning, I was 3 centimeters, and then they stopped the Pitocin for 2 hours, and then they restarted it. In that 2 hours, my water had broke, and then I started getting really strong contractions. And then when the contractions kind of slowed down, then they started Pitocin again because they wanted me to just kind of go on my own, which I'm going to tell you now never really happened. So then on that was all of day 2 of me being there. So then day 3, on Thursday, I had finally gotten up to a 5 of contractions all night long after like a super dose of Pitocin is what she said, but it didn't change. I gotten up to a 5. Sorry, I'm trying to read this and like realize what I'm saying at the same time. Day 3, I got up to a 5 after a super dose of Pitocin, but I stayed at a 5 like the entire day. Nothing changed, and they would check like how close he is to coming out, and he just moved up. Like he didn't move down at all. So, and my water had been broken like too long. So later on that day, I got an epidural because it hurt. Like I was having like contractions off the chart from the Pitocin, but I wasn't actually like, they weren't doing anything. My body just, it wasn't going into labor on its own really or doing anything. So he moved up, my water had been broken too long, all this stuff. So I got an epidural in the afternoon after my water had broken. So did I get it the day before or that day? Brittany, come on. Previous Brittany, what? the epidural worked for like 2 hours and then it stopped working. I feel like, I don't know if I'm crazy or something, I do have scoliosis and my spine curves right where they have to put in the epidural. Getting the epidural did kind of suck because I waited until contractions were at like off the charts, and they were like every 30 seconds, but I wasn't progressing, which really sucked. But anyways, as like she's shoving this needle in my spine, which took longer anyways because I have where I have my curve, like they have to be extra precise and I can't be moving at all. And the way that you have to like arch your back and be turned to get an epidural, I can't really physically bend right there. Like that's right where my curve is, so I can't, and it was bad. I don't think it would necessarily be that bad for anyone, but it was mostly just the position she had me in sucked, and I was having the intense contractions at the same time. But it only worked for a couple hours and then it didn't work. I feel like at one point in time I rolled and I felt like I kind of pulled the cord out. Like everyone says that I was crazy, but like they tape it up, okay, up against my back, and it goes in, and they have like extra cord that like does this or whatever, and they tape it in place. Well, it had gone straight, so I had like pulled it, and I feel like I pulled it out a little, or it's just that my spine's curved in that way and it didn't work. Or I mean, sometimes epidurals just don't work anyways, but it stopped working, which sucked. So then I was feeling the contractions all the way, and I wasn't progressing. So then they said, what about a C-section? That's kind of your only option now. At that time I was just like, yeah, get this thing out of me. Like as the days progressed, the thought of a C-section was so much easier. And I had been scared like the entire pregnancy. Like I would lay in bed at night and kind of have anxiety about the thought of having to get a C-section. Like that was so not what I wanted. And by the time I got in the hospital, this whole like, okay, whatever's supposed to happen is gonna happen. Like I never felt fear. I never felt like, all I felt was, you know, the pain from contractions. Like I didn't have like this, oh, I don't want this to happen, or oh my God, this is gonna suck, or what do you mean you're gonna do this to me, or anything. I was just very much like this whole wave of just calmness, and whatever's supposed to happen to get this baby out of me will. And I wasn't even like stressed, like, oh my God, get this baby out of me. Like I felt very calm for what was happening. And then they were like, okay, we're gonna do a C-section. We're gonna do it in a half an hour. That's when they're ready. We're gonna squeeze you in, And I'm like, okay, like this is the one thing that I didn't want, but whatever's gonna happen will. And I remember like, I had this moment of like physically feeling myself like ball up any emotions that I had for a C-section and just like set them aside and be like, mom mode, whatever I have to do that's best for the baby is gonna happen. So, I went in for a C-section, and they gown you up in case you haven't had a C-section. They clean the bottom of your stomach like with all this different stuff. They have to shave and make sure there's like no hair anywhere around there, which I had kind of given up on taking care of shaving for like the 3 weeks prior to giving birth. So it was kind of embarrassing because I had like my mom, my husband, my mother-in-law, and my aunt who's a photographer, because I wanted her to like take pictures of the birth, which ended up not really happening. But everyone's in their house, they're like shaving me. That was fun. Clean everything up. They put me in a gown, or like not a gown, but a over the head thing. And then my husband gets all gowned up. We got ready. We went back there. I go back there by myself at first, and they put me on a big table. All I had was like my tank top pulled up over my boobs and naked. That's very like, you're in like a surgical room. Like it's not like, sorry, judge me, it's not like a Grey's Anatomy surgical room where like it's this big ass thing or whatever. It's just kind of a bigger doctor office room, and there's like a big table, like a metal table that I just had to lay on. And yeah, it was weird. And there's just like 5 people in there, and I'm like, okay, I kind of thought this would be a little bit more serious, but whatever. So I lay on the table. They put up a curtain. The anesthesiologist, I remember all of this part really well, he comes over behind me and he's like, hey, what's up? He got the cord from my back because I still had like the needle and everything in, it just wasn't working anymore. And he starts pushing in all of this numbing stuff to numb everything so they can do the C-section. And then it didn't work. Like, he just kept pushing in syringes. Like, I think he put in like 5. Like, after 3, the doctor went over and he's like poking me and he's like, can you feel this? And I'm like, yes, like I can feel everything you're doing. Like, it was like he was doing this. I can feel that. And he's like, weird. So he grabs a needle, like just a little one, and starts poking me. And he's like, can you feel this? And I'm like, yeah, I can. I said I could feel a poke. Yes, I'm gonna feel a needle in there. And he's like, huh, weird. And then looks at the anesthesiologist and he just keeps pushing stuff in there and pushing stuff in there. And I'm like, I keep thinking now, like, if you pushed in all of this like numbing stuff, where did it go? Like, I keep wondering, like, where is this magical numbing thing that you put in my body that didn't actually like work? Where is it floating around in there? But anyways, then he was like, okay, well, we're gonna have to put you under, like, we're ready right now, so we're gonna put you under right now. And I was like, okay. And then I remember going to sleep. So if they put you under like all the way, which to me was fine, because I didn't have to feel anything. I don't know, because I'm sure, as you guys know, a C-section, they'll have the little drape over you. They numb you from the bottom half, cut you open, pull a baby out, say, look how cute it is. Usually put it on like your chest or something or whatever. I would have my husband right next to me and we'd be like, oh, cute baby. And you feel the pressure of it coming out supposedly and all this stuff. But for me, they knocked me out. My husband couldn't come back because, I don't know, because I was asleep. They didn't allow anybody to come back then at all. I wish that I would have given like my phone or something to one of the nurses. They were so nice. The last 2 nurses I had the last day were like 2 young girls. They were doing it together. They were both kind of new, so they both were together, and they were the sweetest people. And I know that if I would have said, hey, can you get pictures, they would have. For sure this time I'm gonna make sure someone does, because I would love to see that. But anyway, so they didn't let my husband come back, and I guess he got kind of worried. And then they had, on his side of life, they had the, what's the, like, spiritual person? I don't know, whatever your spirituality preference is, they have him come sit with my husband. So I think he got a little more worried then. And they kind of sat together, and I guess it only took like 20 minutes for all of that to happen. And then my son came out with my husband, and they had their cute little moment, which I really wish I could have been awake for. I guess when my son came out, they had to help him breathe for like 10 minutes because of the medicine they gave me that knocks you out. I woke up apparently like 45 minutes after. What I remember waking up, so I'm laying in a bed, not like in a room, not in the room I had the surgery, and not in like the room we were in, but it was like an in-between room. There's like not sheets, but the curtain things. And he's standing there with this little baby, and I'm like very out of it. And I remember he was just like, here, like, are you awake? Are you awake? And the nurse is like, hey, like, wake up. And they're like trying to give me the baby. And I just remember going like, I can't focus my eyes. Like, don't give him to me. I'm going to drop him. And I kept saying that. And I'm like, you just hold him and wait till I'm like more awake. Like, everyone was like, what? And I'm like, I can't lift my arm right now. I can't pay attention to anything. Don't give me a brand new baby. I'm going to drop him. And then I remember I kept asking, because I would like go through a moment and then kind of forget and wake back up again. And I kept asking what time he was born, because I want to do his birth chart, or I did, you know, I'm one of those people. And if he had all of his fingers and toes. And I think that was it. Like, I kept asking those questions over and over. I probably only asked like 3 times, like every 5 minutes or something while I was waking up, but those were really important to me. I was like, does he have all of his fingers and toes, and what time was he born? So that was kind of that. And then as soon as I was kind of awake enough, I guess, I went back into my room. Then I held him, all that kind of stuff. As far as from there on, sucked. Like, getting to the baby part, I was just like, okay, we're gonna have a baby, like, whatever, I'm good. No emotions, whatever. After you have a baby, obviously, your hormone level was from here, it goes like down to here, or you get like a burst of hormone. I don't know, something happens, and you're emotional. I had to stay in the hospital. He was born on Thursday. We went home Monday because they couldn't get my blood pressure back down. Oh, also, when I first got to the hospital, they gave me, I could be wrong, but I think it's like mercury or something to make your blood pressure go down. That was the worst feeling in the world. It makes your whole, like, all of your blood feel so hot, and it makes you feel like you're peeing yourself. And they kept me on that for like hours. And I remember that was like horrible. Like, it wasn't it wasn't like getting the balloon. It's not like getting an epidural, but that is just like a really crummy feeling. Like, I don't like to be hot anyways, but like every part of you, like your blood feels boiling hot, and it just feels like I'm peeing, like just peeing. As far as what it felt like to get my water broken, because people feels like, or my water broke on its own, I was laying down on a bed, and I was just like, it's just like a gush. Like, I didn't feel like a pop or anything like that. It was just like, okay, like it's wet. My water broke. So that happened. But anyways, we went into the room afterwards. They wheeled me in there. I kind of barely remember that because I had been put under, so I'm still kind of waking up. And then when I was kind of able to sit up, we tried breastfeeding. That was a whole shit show. My entire breastfeeding scenario was just not very good. But he kind of latched on in the beginning, but not really. And the lactation consultant people, I feel like they kind of were like, oh, looks like you got it, and then kind of left. And I feel like had I gotten more help from that point on, we could have had a different scenario as far as breastfeeding goes. But they kind of just left me alone, and they were like, oh yeah, it looks like you know what you're doing. I didn't. I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, like, you kind of get the concept. Put your mouth here, let's figure this out. But he was perfect. They put me on oxys right after for the pain. As far as like C-section pain goes, I don't really remember too much of it. I remember like after I got home kind of stuff. As far as like in the hospital, they gave me oxys. I did not like that. I mean, I liked them after my pregnancy if I needed a good nap kind of thing, because they prescribed me like a month's worth. But they made me fall asleep, and I remember like I would be holding him, and I'm like, you just have to watch me, because as soon as like you get tired, like I'm out. And I remember at one point in time I fell asleep in the bed. The bed was all the way reclined, and I had like the thing up, and I fell asleep with him in my arms, and I woke up and he was gone, and I freaked out, like internal like panic. I'm like, fuck, I dropped him. But AJ had moved him into the little bed thing, because you're not allowed to sleep with the baby in the bed, which is good because I've knocked out. So over like the next 2 days, just newborn baby stuff, people came and visited. I remember my dad was worried about me because I had to go get a C-section, and then like my grandparents came, and my mom was there, and everybody was there. And my aunt, she got pictures because she's the photographer. She got pictures of us like going down the hallway, and my husband all gowned up before we knew that he wasn't going to go back there. And then like newborn pictures of the baby and everything. So that was nice. But my blood pressure wouldn't go back down for a while. It actually didn't go back down for like 2 weeks, but I stayed there until Monday. I had him Thursday. I didn't go back down until Monday, I didn't leave till Monday, and that was absolutely horrible with all of the hormones. And like, I just wanted to go home so bad. I would wait until AJ fell asleep and just cry. I remember like crying for like an hour straight because I hated it. Like, I just wanted to go home so bad, and they wouldn't let me. And I'm like, baby's fine. Like, the only problem that I had was my blood pressure, but like I felt fine. Everything felt good. And you know, you just want that to be over with, because I had already been in the hospital. I went in on Tuesday and I stayed until Monday. Like, it sucked. I think by day 2, I was like up walking to the bathroom. After C-sections, they're like, did you pass gas yet? Did you pass gas yet? Did you pass gas yet? And then as soon as you start, like, I had no control over that. I was like, really sorry, husband, but I have no control of like that part exiting my body. So this is really unattractive. It wasn't like bad or anything, but you are gassy, and it's just like, I didn't really have control over the whole bottom half of me for a while. You still have like the whole bloody mess thing that you do if you had a vaginal delivery, and I think I bled, I read it in my book, I bled for I think 3 weeks after he was born. That it's a lot of blood. In case you haven't had a baby yet, it's a lot. Like, I pro tip, I guess, because I didn't have a vaginal delivery, I didn't make like the popsicle pads, but I did wear like granny panty diapers, and then I would put a big pad in them so that I could use the same granny panty diaper, because those are really comfy. And it would leak every once in a while, and then I would change it, but then you could just change the pad. But it's a lot of blood. Baby did fine. He did great. It was totally fine. Like, just, he had a hard time breathing in the beginning because of the meds they gave me to knock me out. And then, breastfeeding, I think so I was there, sorry, Thursday, he was born Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday for 5 days. I think day 3 or 4, or like the night of day 3, they were kind of worried about his weight gain because he had lost a little bit of weight. And there was one nurse there that just kept saying, like, it's okay to supplement, like, it's okay to use formula. And I really didn't want to. Like, I really wanted this beautiful breastfeeding experience. And she really, really kept pushing me, and I was so emotional and so, like, all over the place, and it was so new to me. And I was just like, okay, like, give him formula. And she's like, okay, so she did. And I feel like had I continued to try, Onyx never really opened his mouth well enough and latched on. So a combination of that, and I felt like my milk never really came in, like, not very strong at all. But had he been latched on the right way and I had spent more time getting him to breastfeed, I felt like it could have worked easier. I did try for 2 months. After 2 months, it was such a struggle and an emotional thing, and I felt very inadequate, like a bad mom, like I couldn't breastfeed my kid. Like, that was like the one thing that I really wanted to do. Emotionally, it was like a big mess for me, but after 2 months, I was like, okay, formula. Like, he wasn't necessarily, like, it wasn't ever a problem because we had continued to kind of supplement with formula. I always tried. Like, I tried to breastfeed, but he was always hungry after. And then I would pump, so then I would breastfeed on each side. Like, after we went home, breastfeed on each side. And he was always still hungry, so then I would give him a little bit of formula, and then while he was having the formula, or right after, I would pump. And I felt like I was constantly, like, because he was about an every 2-hour eater, so I would start feeding him, and that would take like a half an hour, like 15 minutes each side or something, or like 20 minutes each side. It's like a process. In case you don't know, breastfeeding was like a process. It takes time, especially in the beginning. And then he would still be hungry, so I'd feed him the formula, which would then also take like another, I don't know, 10-15 minutes. And then I'd burp him, keep him upright for a little bit, and then put him to sleep, and then pump, which took like 30 minutes. Or I would pump like 20 minutes on each side. Like, I was like really trying. I was drinking. People said like to drink the, what's it called, like the Armor water or whatever. I was drinking those like crazy. Oatmeal helps, like the lactation cookies. Like, I was doing all these things and like nothing was really working. I was pumping a lot. Some people just say like the pump really doesn't help some people. Like, it's not the actual sucking you get from a baby, so maybe that could have been it. But I did that a lot, and I just like, it's like I had this much time to get him fed, sleep, and I spent that whole time like pumping and worrying about how much time I had to feed him before it was time to feed him again. And I kind of, in that time, I would say, began postpartum depression. I don't know, but it really bothered me that I couldn't do that. And because of mommy issues that I've had in the past, or when I was growing up specifically, I didn't have the best mom. She's a great mom now, but at the time she wasn't. And I have always had this whole like, when I have a kid, I'm gonna do it perfect. When I have a baby, I'm gonna be so much better, and I'm gonna do like those kinds of things. And it didn't work out that way, and I felt like a big failure of a mother. So that was really hard. And then I have to, you know, like, a couple people would visit, or like my husband would try to help, and I'm just like, no, I have to do this on my own. Like, I have parental issues, I guess you could say, and I will go into all of that someday. But I had this big thing of like, I have to do this. I wish that I had kind of leaned on my husband a little bit more, because I took on so much. Like, I did everything, and it wasn't because he wasn't offering. Like, he definitely was trying. I was just like, no, this is me. It wasn't like I wasn't not letting him see his kid kind of thing, but I was just like, I am super mom and I can do all of this. And I also had guilt, I guess you could say. He was due in April. I had stopped working in January. It was a big long story, but my job at the time, I'd worked with family, in a company. My family had also worked there. They got fired, and then the people that owned the company were very, very rude, and I like ended up quitting in January. I was big and pregnant. I'm like, no one's gonna hire me right now for a new job, and my husband let me stay home. So I had a lot of guilt of when the baby comes, he's my responsibility. Like, this is my job. You work all day. Like, I don't want you to have to come home and also do another job kind of thing. Eventually, I'm like, bro, I need help. Do the night shift, or like help me with the night shift. Or when he came home, he always washed bottles. Like, that was, at that time, that was his thing. Because eventually we were formula feeding, and I'm like, if you just come home and wash the bottles and then like take him so I can go take a shower or something for an hour. But it took me a really long time to be able to say, hey, I need help. And then I would get depressed that like I wasn't being perfect. And then if I talked to somebody about how I was feeling about not being perfect, like I couldn't say that. Like, everyone's like, how's motherhood? And I'm like, perfect, we're doing great, everything's great. So that took me a long time to get through. I think until he was like 6 or 8 months old was I able to say like, dude, this kind of sucks. Like, I love my kid. Now I can say like, it kind of sucks being a stay-at-home mom 24/7 with it's not the funnest anyways, but along with how I felt, and I had this whole like, I have to be a perfect mom thing, it just, now I already know like I'm gonna have people lined up to come every day and help me. Like, I am not afraid to say, please come help, please come help me. But anyways, that's kind of how it went with my bubs. Other than that, like, he was a perfect baby. He his only like thing is that he spit up kind of a lot. It wasn't like everything he ate. He just kind of had a problem spitting up as a baby, and the doctor prescribed him like antacid things. I never actually gave them to him because it wasn't that bad. He and I had like the perfect little bonding thing. Eventually, when I gave up on the breastfeeding, my life got a lot easier. I had time to like clean the house and focus on myself, or like nap with him all day, and just, it was beautiful. Like, we had the perfect thing. And I think for the twins, that is one thing when I found out I was having twins that I was worried about, because I'm like, how am I going to bond like that with 2 kids at once while I'm watching Onyx? Now I think I'll just figure it out. But because I had such a great bonding experience with him after I decided to use formula, like, trying to breastfeed for me was horrible. Like, it was hard or whatever. It just, I don't know, that whole experience sucked. I'm still going to try with the twins, and I feel like I kind of know a little bit more now, or I'll ask for help. Like, I'm now at this point not afraid to say, like, call a lactation nurse or go out of my way to see one or something. Like, I think I know a lot different now and how I can do things differently. But anyways, yeah, that was my birth story. That's what happened with my little bubs. He was born 7 pounds 3 ounces, 20 inches long. He was perfect. Born at 104 on 5/3/18. My little Taurus boy, and he is definitely a Taurus boy. That feels like so long ago, but yesterday. Hopefully, see, this time around, just so you guys know, scheduled C-section. Unless they decide to come early, it'll still be a C-section, which I think will take away a lot of the, like, I had what, 3 or 4 days of trying. Like, now I think it would just be like C-section. I know what to expect-ish. It's, in my mind, going to be a lot easier. Hopefully they don't need any NICU time, because that's really common with twins. As long as I can get to like 36 weeks, we should be fine. But yeah, that's what happened. That was my little Bubs' entrance into the world. Onyx, Michael, Shay, Robinson. I love him. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. My little big old 30-minute ramble of my kid.